Fly ball left field, tagging from third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. It's been a couple weeks since we did an episode. A lot has changed, and thankfully for the better since we last got together. So the Phillies are 13-13 right now. The last time we did an episode, they were 4-8, somewhere around there. It's right around the Marlins series, which ended pretty ugly, honestly. So thankfully things have gotten better. The Phillies took a Midwest trip to Cincinnati and Chicago, and it seems to have corrected some of their problems, it seems. And then coming home and playing Colorado really helped, I think, there. And then they played the Mariners, who very good team, but really struggling offensively right now. I was surprised to see some of the batting averages in that lineup. Not what I expected when they came into town. So a lot has thankfully gone right. I think the biggest thing, honestly, the fact that they are 9-5 since we last spoke, is that they started to hit home runs, because they were not hitting any. And then the Colorado series, they really started to click.
Yeah, Nick's back,
Yeah.
so that's good to see. But like he's even talking like third person in interviews now, so like he might actually be like all the way back. But I don't. They started hitting fastballs, which is good to see because I feel like a lot of their guys were just like so off timing wise to start the year, which is like expected, I guess. Like spring training does help, but a lot of times you're not facing like top tier arms in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as they got into the swing of things, it took them like maybe like 10 games to kind of get back to their approaches and be on time against pitchers that they're used or are supposed to be facing instead of like lower level guys.
Right. Yeah, and the biggest, not the biggest thing, but I guess the funniest thing was that early in the year, they had like 5 guys that had a batting average well over 300, but it just felt like it was nothing. Like they were just all singles in different innings, and it never led to anything. And now that they're driving the ball out of the park, and Castellanos had a 2-run home run. I think they had a couple 2-run home runs on Sunday too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting these multiple run homers is helping so much, because it seemed like all the home run, like Schwarber has 5 solo home runs this year, as 0 multi-run home runs, which feels like last year all over again. But
Yeah.
they're finally hitting the ball out when these guys are on base, because what was happening was it was like single, strikeout, singles, like ground out, whatever, out, and the inning was over, because instead of it being a 2-run home run, the guy just hit another single. So now
Yeah.
they're finally, instead of trying to piece together like 3 or 4 hits at a time to get a run,
Mm-hmm.
it's a walk or a single and then a home run, which is really helping them.
Yeah, and like even piecing the hits together isn't like the worst thing in the world, but like at the same time, if you're going to do that, like you have to be consistent. Like you said, they were
Yeah.
getting all these hits, but then like runners in scoring position, they were like last. Like they were at one point, they were I think first leading the league in batting average, but then they were like bottom 10 in terms of runs scored. It's like the batting average is empty if you're not doing it when there's guys on second and third. Like the game they won the other night, 6-5 against the Mariners, is like Castellanos single, Marsh single first to third, and then instead of the usual inning ending double play that would still score a run there, like another single keeps moving the line, and the singles were coming with guys in scoring position instead of nobody on.
Yeah, that game was nice. That is, Castellanos had the 2-run home run early in that game, and then they kind of bounced back after getting in a hole, and it was all singles. The home run was the only extra base hit I think they had in that game, which was kind of funny. So that game was an example of the opposite, but the Colorado series really came down to home runs. Home runs pretty much won them 3 of those. Well, they won 3 games, but won 3 of them because Schwarber hit the home run in the second game that tied it, and then it was Pache and Castellanos hitting home runs on Saturday, and then Stott Marsh hit one on and Cody Clemens on Sunday. So they started to hit the ball out, which helped there. So yeah, Castellanos though up to 333 batting average, 16 RBIs, and I think last year a lot of like there was a dread when he came up in like a big situation, and now it's like he's the guy you want up. It's done a total like 180 on the script there.
Yeah, and I think the majority of that has to do with his pitch selection. Like just like his at bats early on in the season, he still swung at a fair amount of pitches outside of the zone, but the sliders down and away, the swings are pretty far in between now. Like he'll still chase one occasionally, but it's not like last year. It was you could go up there, throw three of those in at bat, and he'd swing at all three of them, and then just walk. It's very few and far between when he swings. He picks his spots. He's looking for fastballs, but he's not guessing fastball and then flailing it off speed pitches. Like he has a better set approach, and he has his game plan. He's sticking to it this year.
Yeah, I was looking. He's only struck out one time in the last week, which is yeah, for him that's impressive. I'd say.
Especially he was striking out a decent amount to start the season. Like in that first 10 or when they were 4-8, I feel like he was striking out a lot.
Yeah, that Rangers series, he got squeezed by the ump a couple times, and I think that he resorted back to what he was doing because he was trying to protect the plate, and it messed him up. But now that I think that's kind of behind him, he's straightened that out, which is nice to see. I mean, the rest of the offense too. Schwarber, it's hard to. We know how it is. Like the first 2 months are bad. I'm not gonna get on it. Like, there's no point. Real Muto, pretty up and down, which is again another guy early in the year. Seems to be the case. I don't know. Turner's at 273. He was at like 330, I feel like a week ago. Yeah. So
Dodgers fans are all over on Twitter, and they're like, I mean, Dodgers fans hate him for some reason, but like they said that he did this last year too, and like the stats do kind of prove it. Like his Aprils are relatively slow, and then he heats up as the season goes on, which is fine. Like if you're telling me that like Turner's like he's been good, but obviously our expectations for him were insanely high, especially after the World Baseball Classic. Like they're 500, and they're doing what they need to do with average. Like Nolan Wheeler have been like average at best, and with all the injuries they've had, like if you told me that they'd be 500 right now, like sure, I'd buy it at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna get into those starters in a minute, but like you kind of brought up, if we know Schwarber's a slow starter, I guess now we could say Turner is too, and Harper's not here. So you have Bohm, Stott, and Marsh all on fire right now, all hitting. I think Bohm's at like 290 something, but all in that 300 range, all driving the ball. If they carry you through the early part of the season, and then in June, you know, if Harper comes back in a week, which might happen, we don't know yet. If Harper comes back in a week, and after a month he's settled in, and then June Schwarber happens, and I guess Turner is a summer guy too, then those three guys carry you the rest of the way. Just having those younger guys kind of pick up the slack early in the year, we're going to look back at that if this team goes back to the playoffs.
Yeah, going back to like the young guys, you mentioned like Marsh, and you mentioned Pache earlier. When are we going to start talking about like building the Kevin Long statue? Like this guy, as of like early this week, Marsh led the league in OPS. Like Brandon Marsh led the league in OPS. That's just absurd to say. And I think Pache, after the horrible first week that he had, he's like 8 for his last 16 with a double and a home run.
Yeah.
Like this guy just does things that I feel like, I mean, the last 10 years you can't really like judge, but like even across the league, I feel like hitting coaches just don't like have the impact that he does, especially in like organizations. Like that was part of the reason Turner came. Like there's just continuity with Kevin Long that these guys love, and it shows on the field that they're comfortable with him.
Yeah. I mean, Schwarber too pretty much came because of him. Like, It is funny. I was actually looking at Marsh. He's on pace to have more extra base hits by the All-Star break than the last 2 seasons combined.
It's absurd. His strikeout rate's down. Like
Yeah, that was the big thing. He was whiffing at some ugly stuff
Well,
last year.
when we got him, he led the league in strikeout rate. I think his strikeout percentage was like 36%. But he's like hitting lefties. Like Kevin Long just sat down with him in the offseason, I guess, and they just went to work, and he's started. I mean, I don't know how real the whole Pache thing is, but like 16 at bats, 8 for 16, and with elite level defense, like if he keeps it up, you have 2 Gold Glove center fielders in the outfield. Like it's impressive with what he's been able to do with the younger guys who a lot of people were starting to count out.
Yeah, especially. I mean, a lot of people wrote Bohm off. He's now somewhat of a power threat. He had those 3 home runs early. He hasn't had one in a week or so, I think. But just the fact that he's hitting the ball as well. And Stott, I mean, we didn't really get to talk about this because we had episodes in between, but Stott had the longest hit streak to start the season in Phillies franchise history. Was 18, something 17, 18, something like that.
I think he got 17, and then 18 was the same day as 17 because of the doubleheader, and he didn't get it.
Yeah, so he had like the day hit streak went to like 20 something, I think, but the game hit streak stopped at 17, so that was funny. But yeah, I mean, and now the fact that he's batting leadoff and Turner is 2, and then when Harper comes back, like this lineup is so deep, and I don't even know if now we don't know who could get hurt down the line, but as it stands right now, I don't even think they're gonna bother to trade for a first baseman at the deadline.
No, I mean the whole Harper taking reps there is like fine. I don't know when that would happen because like you do have to make some throws at first base. Right. So obviously they have a plan, but I think if he comes back at some point in May, they probably will keep him at DH and they'll worry about the first base thing maybe in like June-ish or July. But I mean Sosa's been like every day good, like good enough to get every day at bats. So you can keep him at third, Bohm at first, and you can kind of hang on to the farm system and not mortgage for like, I don't even know if the Diamondbacks would sell because that division's weird right now. Like the Padres will get going, but the Dodgers aren't great. So like they probably wouldn't give up Christian Walker. And I mean, Cron kind of killed us that series, but
yeah,
I don't know what their price would be for CJ Cron if it'd really be worth it. So you kind of hang on to the farm system if Sosa, Bohm, like those guys kind of keep proving to you that they could do everyday production at the corners.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen, especially because I think they're going to have to get a starter. The way this is looking, I mean, we don't know when Andrew Painter is going to be back. Ranger Suarez is supposed to be back in a couple of weeks, which is nice. And that's interesting to me because if Ranger Suarez comes back, the consensus is that Strom is going to the bullpen. He's not arguably, he has been your best starter. That feels so tough to me to take him out when he's been dealing for you. Now it makes your bullpen even more insane than it's been, and in a way that shortens the game for the Walkers and the Falters of the world. So I see the upside there, but I have a hard time taking Strom out of the rotation, at least until like Nola and Wheeler start showing me something.
Yeah, it's just so weird because Walker was 4 for 72 million and Strom was 2 for 15.
Yeah, it was in the teens somewhere, 16 somewhere in there.
And like Strom has been like the better contract through 4 or 5 starts, and it's like not even close.
It's not.
And the thing about Strom that I love, like he's just like a psychopath. Like obviously we want to see our guys care, and we know like they're not trying to like lose games, but like sometimes just like the blank stares and the blank facial emotion, it's like at least like show a pulse or something. Like, that was one of our biggest issues with Nick last year. Like he just seemed disengaged at times.
Yeah,
Strom will throw like the first pitch of the game, it'll be like an inch outside, and he'll start like cursing himself out. Like he's just a maniac, and you could tell that he really wants to be out there. He really wants to pitch well, and it's proven. He's proven that in the first month of the season where he's just been shoving.
Yeah, I mean, he leads the team in ERA. I'm pretty sure strikeouts too. Yeah, 32 and 23 innings, and WHIP at 0.81. So he's by far been the steadiest starter because let's see, Wheeler's ERA is, I know it's as 4.73. His WHIP is 1.35. I mean, he's been weird because the past couple starts, especially, he looked like he was going to throw a no-hitter in both of them. And then the third or fourth inning, he gives up like 6 straight base runners. He throws 35 pitches in the inning, gives up 3 or 4 runs, and then the next 3 innings looks like he's throwing a no-hitter again. So
Walker's been the same way. Like he'll come out and
Yeah.
shove for the first 2 innings, and then the 4th inning he'll go like walk, double, walk, home run. Like I don't know if they just hit a wall, if they're not like conditioned yet for the season. But yeah, there's like 1 inning where they just blow up after they look unhittable for the first 3.
I know they get more time with a runner on with the pitch clock than not, but to me it seems like Wheeler's struggling more with a runner on with the pitch clock because like it's those innings where there's a leadoff walk or single where he's blowing up because I don't know like if his timing is different when he's trying to check back the runner and stuff, but it seems like he rushes stuff and his command goes away in innings when the leadoff guy gets on. I don't know if it has to do with the clock or what, but it seems like it might.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people. Somebody was telling me yesterday that last year, I guess, because Corbin Burns has been like really bad this year, and he like led the league in terms of time in between pitches last year. So it's like the pitch clock doesn't just because you've been like historically like really good throughout your career, like that's a big adjustment for guys to make because I feel like Nola in particular, like his pace is pretty slow at times. So like you could pitch as much as you want in spring training with it, but like in a game that matters in a real setting against major league hitters 1 through 9, it's definitely going to play a factor in terms of how you go about making each pitch and rushing through it and maybe losing some command along the way.
Yeah. Nola, the ERA is well over 5.4. The WHIP is 1.3, and he only has 22 strikeouts in 28 innings, which over the past couple of years, early in his career, he wasn't much of a strikeout guy, I feel like, but then the past couple of years, that seems to really come on and be part of his game, but it's not there so far this year. Now, his last outing, he gave up the 3-run bomb in the first or the second, and then ended up going 7 innings. So maybe he's kind of turned a page, but this year so far, his starts have not been. I mean, we know what happened in Texas, and then against the Yankees, gave up 3 runs in 6 innings, and then 4 runs in 5 innings against the Marlins, which was pretty ugly. I mean, he hasn't given up less than 2 runs in a start yet, which.
So the thing, his curveball there hasn't really been a start where his curveball's been like overwhelmingly sharp like it has been in the past years. And I don't know if it's like fatigue from last season still because they had such a heavy workload, but like in his start the other day in like the 2nd inning, his fastball was sitting 89. Like that's just not going to work no matter like he was pitching against the Rockies, but it's like that's just not going to work against major leaguers no matter how much movement you have on a fastball. If it's 89, you're not going to miss bats. And that's another thing that's been a little concerning about Wheeler. Like he'll come out and in the first inning you'll see 97 on the radar gun and it's like, oh, okay, like nothing to worry about here because that's always like the last year that's been with his injuries, the velocity is always something to watch. And he'll be 97 in the first and then he'll come out for the second or the third and it'll be like 93, 94, but then if you go into like MLB, the game day app, it'll say like 93.5. Like the velocity is just down early into their starts this year.
Yeah, these are 2 guys that Wheeler was hurt the year the Mets went to the World Series, right?
Yeah, because that was the fallout with that organization because they made him pay for his own playoff tickets.
Oh, right. Yeah. So the point is, these are two guys who have pitched a lot of innings in their careers, but never pitched that late in the season before.
Mm-mm.
And I think we're kind of seeing that with how they're hitting these walls. They look a little tired at times for sure. And we'll see what Ranger looks like when he comes back, because he had a pretty heavy workload. I mean, it's pretty much just the three of them. He had a pretty heavy workload too, but him getting this extra month of, I guess, rest, even though he was hurt, maybe that helps him. We'll see. Maybe he comes out firing, but they need him back to stabilize some things. And the two of these guys do, if they have to shut them down, you can't shut them down at the same time. But
No.
I don't know what you do. I mean, we'll see. Noah plays the Astros tonight, so we'll see how that goes, I guess. And I guess Wheeler does tomorrow then. So
Yeah.
we'll see how these starts go. If they're good, maybe they're starting to get back on the right track. But so far, the first month has been pretty bad for them.
Yeah, definitely by their standards.
Yeah. The bullpen though has been really good. The bullpen was awful in Texas, like awful. It was pretty bad. And since then, like these guys are all pretty good. Dominguez, last 7 games, 1 run, 7 strikeouts in 6 innings. He's been pretty good. Kimbrel, Kimbrel has been really good actually, which has been a little surprising. Yet his last 7 games, 6.2 innings, 3 hits, 0 runs, 0 walks, 12 strikeouts. I did not see that guy coming.
Both with Dominguez and Kimbrel, like they're both back to like velocity of Sir Anthony's like first outing in Texas, he was like 94, and it was like, what's going on there? But lately he's been up to 97, 98, 99. Like he looks back to form that we saw towards the end of the season last year. Yeah, Kimbrel, as long as it keeps up, like sure, I'm not gonna. There's not much to say other than we're surprised, but I'm definitely not complaining if he keeps pitching, especially like he did yesterday.
Yeah. And then there's Jose Alvarado, who honestly is somehow probably the best reliever in baseball right now. 4 saves, 11.1 innings pitched. He's allowed 1 run, which was like power against power home run. Soler just meets a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, goes down and gets it. He hasn't walked anyone, and he has 22 strikeouts. This was a guy who the Rays pretty much gave up with because he couldn't throw strikes, and now he somehow has the best command in baseball.
I remember the first like pod that I did with you last year. We were talking about like trade. It was around like trade deadline and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, like they got to look for a lefty because I'm just not comfortable whenever Alvarado comes into the game. And then he got sent down, and now it's just like, yeah, if as long as he's out there, it's like 3 outs, sure.
Yeah.
Or next inning, or if it's the 9th inning now because he's kind of moved into the closer role. It's like, yep, end of the game, ball game, on to the next one. He's just locked down. I don't know what they did, whether it was the AAA coaches that talked to him about maybe just throwing the sinker and not kind of setting up on corners and just let the natural movement do whatever, or if it was Caleb Cotham who kind of had that plan, but he's just borderline unhittable whenever he comes into the game.
And you brought up him going to the closer's role, and they've been able to do that because Soto has been so good as the other lefty. He hasn't given up a run since that Yankees series where he gave up that home run. He's been unhittable too lately. So they might have fixed him, it seems. And I mean, if they realistically, if they fix Soto, it's the best lefty combo in a bullpen in baseball. It's not
even close.
It's not close.
Like, it's just from where we were like years ago. If you would have told me that the Phillies won a game yesterday, 1-0 to get back to 500, like that's just absurd. And we went from like the worst bullpen in the history of the sport like 2 or 3 years ago to that. Like these guys, you could bring normally in a good bullpen, it's like you have like 2 guys, maybe 3 guys, but mostly like 2 a night because you'll get 1 a night off that just come in and like shut the door. If a starter gives you like 4 or 5 innings, like you can realistically mix and match a combination of right now 4 or 5 guys that are just like, yeah, we're any of these guys could come in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, and I'd be comfortable with them.
Yeah, I mean, even Brogdon. Brogdon was really ugly his first outing of the year too, and he's given up, I think, only 2 runs since then. So you have 5 guys you really like, and then if Strom comes back, you're at 6. I mean, that's incredibly deep. And Strom being a lefty, it's impossible for lefties to hit anything off that bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, our division's kind of lost some of the left. Like it used to be when it was like Freeman in our division, Soto was there when Harper like wasn't with us, and you needed all these lefty relievers, and now we have like 2 and then 3 if Strom gets pushed back, and it's, all the lefties ran out of the division because they saw the bullpen that was established, and they wanted no part of it, and I can't say I blame them.
No, I mean, the turnaround is insane with that bullpen. And if they keep it going and Wheeler Nola get going, Harper comes back, they're only 4 games out behind Atlanta right now.
Yeah.
The way things are going, I think they'll stay in the race to the end of the year. I don't see them getting blown out of the water.
No, I mean, not like realistically, like the roster should be getting healthier. Like you had a lot of big names injured at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And like I know he's not like a big name, but it's Derek Hall was supposed to be like a pretty big part of the team as far as replacing some of the Hoskins production. And now it's like you're still 500 and you've had Cody Clemens start 4 games. And yesterday you had the game-winning RBI.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting contributions from guys that you didn't necessarily think you would, and you're still staying afloat long enough. Like 4 games back in the division, and none of the big dogs are really like Harper's not back yet. Turner really hasn't gotten going. Schwarber is what Schwarber is, but like there's still we know there's more in the tank there than 205 home runs, and it's kind of like Castellanos and the young guys right now until the older guys find their footing and get going in the season.
Yeah. So the Phillies have 3 in Houston this weekend and then 3 at the Dodgers, who are kind of struggling. So we'll see. That's a tough road trip, but if they make some noise, a lot of people are going to be pretty optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't always been pretty. Like the Red series weren't the greatest in the world, but like they keep winning series or splitting, and like the Rockies lost to start that series. It's like the guy has a 9 ERA and you can't score, so it's frustrating.
Yeah, that was bad.
But then you come back and win the next 3 and still win a 4-game series. It's like they're for the most part doing what they need to do in order to keep themselves in the race and just hang around until they get fully healthy and get ready for the summer run.
Yeah, I mean, summer run was what they did last year. It was the beginning of June when they started to go off. So they could stick around 500 until then, and then these guys get going, that they'll be set. All right. So we're going to end this one here. Can't really talk. Allergies are killing me. But thanks for watching this one. We'll be back in a couple weeks.